Hey guys, I'm Lethy from Asphodel, and we have spent most of this year building an on-chain MMORPG, and we spent most of the duration of this residency refactoring it in mud. So I'm about to tell you more. I'm obsessed with MMOs. I have been since I had an unhealthy relationship with World of Warcraft and EVE as a teenager. I think I clocked about 300 days played on WoW, which was a serious problem. And ever since then, I've had MMOs in the back of my head. And in the last few years, I found myself working on DeFi protocols, on-chain products, and time again, I've seen people try to launch MMOs. And so far, all of them that I've seen on the open market have been vaporware. So over time, I thought, I'm not from the games industry. I used to be a neuroscientist. I've spent some time in different types of tech and eventually crypto. Am I really going to be able to build an MMO? Because they're really hard. They're maybe the hardest genre of game to build. They're expensive, they're huge, they require big teams, they take multi-year dev cycles. Can a 5 or 10 person startup really build that without taking 10, 20 years? And so we looked back. So a joke I've heard many times is that Ethereum is basically a computer in 1985. In many ways, it replicates the experience you'd have of using a much older computer. So I asked, what did people run in terms of online games in the 80s? 4 of the games on here aren't from the 80s, but we can trace them back. So on the bottom left, we have modern RuneScape. On the top right, we have RuneScape Classic. And on the top, we have the missing link, Devious Mud. So this was the original release of RuneScape, which is a mud. Now, you've heard the term mud before, because it's the engine that we're all building on. But that term comes from the idea of a multi-user dungeon, which is the classic original 80s era games. And now before we even came across Lattice or this residency, we'd had the idea that we were going to build this out. We're going to build an on-chain mud. And this is inspired by this baby. Now this is probably the most long-running autonomous world you've never heard of. This is the Discworld mud. It's been running since 1992, has over 1 million rooms, I think 50 to 100,000 of which are custom made. It has no central single coordinating team. No one has ever been paid. They've never raised any money. And that game's been going for 30 years, and it's still live today. So frankly, this is a more effective model of decentralization than most protocols. It's tiny, it's silly, and it's a game, but volunteers have kept this thing running for 30 years with really simple modular architecture. So what happens if we put that on chain? Because this idea of distinct modular rooms, essentially positions or integers, and you can arbitrarily assign anything to that position, it's very simple. And it's really well suited to a computer in 1985 or to the EVM. So we thought, what if we build this out? What if we put a nice front end on top of it? What if we take this classic mod structure, make it look good, and then simply run it directly off the EVM? Now, I'll tell you what happens. You realize you need a game engine to do this, because we worked away for several months and we ran into serious issues. And then we came across the game engine, Mud, named after the type of game we're trying to use. And I will now show you the results of our refactoring over the last few months. Oh man, you can tell it's not responsive. 1 second. Oh man, where's the plus? Yeah, we hard-coded the UI dimensions, you can probably tell. So this is a very basic working on-chain MMO. As you can see here, we have this. This is the room being represented. This is actually only a single location on-chain. This guy is a character, they're unique. April has just logged in her character here, so you can see her right next to me. The chat at the bottom does work, but currently very unreliably, so I'm not going to try and live test that. These characters, they have individual skills, they have procedurally generated appearances, and they can navigate this world independently. So, sorry, my cursor is so tiny on the screen. He moves into another room here. And the character can navigate a whole world of arbitrarily defined rooms in this way. The awesome thing is, it doesn't require any maintenance. It's pretty cheap and easy to add new rooms. And this stuff is super modular. So if we want to add in new NPCs or characters or monsters, we can do that. In fact, it would take a few days of coding. Now we've actually got this foundation here. So we have something that can be used for an MMO. You can harvest resources. Now, if I wait for this to finish, he's inevitably this is gonna be the one time it doesn't drop. So I've already got one ready. But he would mine some stone from this little hand. He can then go elsewhere in the world and craft it. And after that, he can then use the resources he's crafted to build other things within the world. Give you, while we're up. The soundtrack won't play, that sucks. So we craft through here. Again, this is all taking place on chain. This is all using mud. There's no central services yet. And we craft bone blocks using osteolith. So now in the final version of the game, the first task will be for players to collaboratively gather resources and rebuild their way out of this basement. So once the guy's crafted the bone blocks, he heads up here, places them on the destroyed stairs at the top, and they unlock a new area. So this is really a tech demo, but the important thing is this is an MMO and it works. It runs on the EVM. It's still on a test net, but we think by Q1 next year, we can actually get this running on mainnet, and it will be a credible on-chain MMO, which is all we wanted to achieve. Now, I'm going to pass over a little bit to the tech side, to April, who's going to tell you something about actually building this.
Thanks, Matt. So we started this about sometime in late January, sorry, late June, July, and we started off with a little bit of like, I thought this would be simple, right? We're just starting with rooms. So there's a player and there's rooms, and then the player moves around, and then suddenly the player has inventory. And now we add on maybe we add on quests. This is like more things and more things. Then eventually, like I thought it was a bit like a cat, and it's like the cat is chasing a laser pointer, but the laser pointer is part cat and the cat is part laser pointer, and there are like 1,000 cats, and all the cats are children of the laser pointer, and it's all controlled by one contract. So that's not great. And yeah, so we spent the past 2 months refactoring everything in ECS. So it's a lot cleaner, a lot more simpler, and more importantly, it's a lot more scalable. So we can create new entities, create new characters, create new systems very easily and very quickly. This is how I've seen like the difficulty level when we are expanding the games. ECS is a bit more like constant time, whereas OP you get a bit of an exponential time, because there's like when you build with OOP and build with traditional programming, it's like you build a lot of things on top of each other, which is very good for depth, but it's not very good for this type of game, which we want to do like big scales, big breadth. This is a little bit into our code base. So over here, this is like where we declare all the prototypes. So this, for example, is the player prototype. This is actually all the code you need to create a new entity. So let's say if you want to create something like an NPC, and that's it. It's just like 5 lines of code, and everything works out of the box. Right. Before I end, I'm very very proud of the code base and everything we've done, but I'm also really looking forward to the future. Um, Mud allows us a very modular system. It allows us like customizability and mods and all that. And like I really can't wait for people to build dashboards and everything to see how the whole world works. And of course, I'm most excited about doing some MEV in the game world. I'll pass the time back to Matt.
Thanks. And I really want to shout out the work April's done over the last several months is incredible. I don't think many people could have actually made this work. So thanks, April. What next? We're doing a playtest later this month. If you've any interest in participating in trying a very early playtest of an on-chain MMO, please just let me know on Discord or here. We'll make sure you're included. And then we're powering on to this idea of a mainnet alpha launch in Q1 next year, which is going to be exciting. So you'll see more from us over the next couple of months. And yeah, please just look out for our mainnet launch and look forward to it. Thank you very much.